I was taking a look at everything this morning, and I got it's like a 70% chance of it raining on Friday evening, and then I got like a 80% chance of it raining on Saturday, and then I have another 70% chance of it raining on Monday. And so I may not be able to take cattle over to the new field until next week, but it's more or less the same thing, right? It don't really matter to me. I still got this cold. I feel a little bit better than yesterday, but I still got this cold, and so but yep, I might not be able to take cattle over to the new field until next week. But I was taking over I was taking a look over the things that I'm looking to accomplish. You know, I've always said that when I make a plan, it's not to be perfect. You know, the plan is not to be perfect. The plan just exists so that I have a direction that I'm going. And I wanted to go over the plan in good detail this morning. And so right now, I have 33 cattle, and I have these cattle are probably, I would say, the average weight on these animals are going to be close to about probably about 450, something about 450 or so. It's over 400, and I have a non-payment agreement on my contract until May, and so I effectively have zero expenses until May. You know, because right now with where the commodity markets are, you know, I have a stockpile of grain, and I have a stockpile of grass. I got that new field, and that new field has a good bit of grass on it, and I got my grass growing in here too. Granted that it's been last night it actually dropped to about 30, and when it's below 35 degrees, effectively all of the plants just stop metabolizing, so there is zero growth, effectively just a borderline zero growth. It's very, very, very minimal growth. And so, but this next week, it's going to be warmer. It's getting up to about 70 and about 45 in the evening, and there's going to be rain. So I would anticipate that my grass grows. And I also got that new field, and that new field has a lot of stockpiled grass on it. And so I'm going to be taking my animals over to that new field. But, you know, I was taking a look at everything, and, okay, so I got 33 animals right now, and I have a non-payment agreement on my new property until May. And so these animals, the big plan right now is to I'll probably end up well, more than likely what's going to happen is that you know, more than half of these animals are going to be going to market by about May. And so you know, I'm going to sell these animals, and when I sell these animals, the market target weight right now is 850, and so when I sell these animals, I'll effectively make enough money to purchase more than 2 cattle per 850-pound animal that I sell. If I sell, well, I mean, but when I take a look at the entirety of my herd, and I consider everything involved, I would just say it's going to be about somewhere between 1.7 and 2 cattle per animal that I sell. And so if I sell 33 animals, I would anticipate that I can purchase about 60. And if I purchase 60, I'll probably have about 50 when it's all said and done. And so, you know, I have enough money effectively to purchase 50 cattle. I have zero expenses until May because I have a non-payment agreement on my contract, and so I can just go and make as much money as I can. And so by about May, I'll have enough money to effectively get myself around 50-55 cattle, and then I will take a loan to purchase an equal number of cattle. And when I do that, okay, so I wanted to go over this idea because I believe that this is a very important idea. So if I have 50 cattle worth of money, and I go to the bank and I take a loan for 50 more cattle, that means I have 100 cattle and I am at a net zero balance, right? I have 50 cattle worth of money. The equity evaluation of my herd is effectively 50 cattle, right? I've been talking about this whole thing. It's like you know, my exit strategy, if I'm really gonna do this thing, because if I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do this thing, I am effectively putting myself in a position where it's like I'm the only person on the entire planet that can run this business, including my family. All right, and I am going to be undertaking risk. All right, I'm you know, when you're moving millions of dollars a year, there is a substantial amount of risk that is involved. All right, you know, You know, I'll be utilizing close to probably about $1 million. And on that $1 million, I will, you know, I will be netting a return of probably somewhere around 5 million. And so it's a lot of money that's involved. And when I take a look at what I'm doing, I took a look at it and I was like, you know, I need to come up with an exit strategy when I go in to do this thing, because who knows, right? I mean, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow, right? I mean, nobody knows. I mean, nobody knows, right? I mean, I would love to live to be an old man. That would be fantastic. You know, if I lived to be an old man, I would just farm every day until the day that I died. But, you know, nobody knows, right? I mean, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And so, you know, if I go in and if I had, well, when I made an entrance strategy, I also made my exit strategy. And my exit strategy is effectively, and I've talked about this idea all the time, right? Storing wealth in a tax deductible asset that can be knowledgeably appreciated, right? I talk about this idea all the time, and I'll go into more detail about this idea right now. So if I have 50 cattle worth of money, I have 33 cattle right now. I have 33 cattle right now, and I anticipate that when I sell, when I go through with my business plan and I liquidate my animals, I will effectively have enough money to purchase about 50 cattle. All right, so I'll go from 33 to 50. Effectively, and that's a low ball estimate, but I mean, it's a very realistic estimate. Maybe I end up with 55 or 60, right? I mean, but more or less, that's the direction that I'm going. I'll liquidate my 33 animals. I have a non-payment agreement until May. The average weight of my herd is over 400 pounds. I would anticipate that about 75% of my animals are ready to go to market in about 5.5 months. Okay, and so I sell the 33 animals. I make enough money to purchase 50 animals. I take those 50 animals and then I take a loan for 50 animals. So I have 50 animals worth of money. I take a loan for 50 more animals. That puts me in a situation where I now have 100 animals and I am at a net zero balance. All right, I have 100 animals and I'm at a net zero balance. And when I do that, effectively what's going to happen is that I will be appreciating 100 animals at the same time. And so when I get those animals ready to go to market and everything, those 100 animals, when I get them ready to go to market, by the time I liquidate them, I will effectively have enough money to purchase about 200 animals. And so I will have enough money to purchase 200 animals. I will pay the bank back their 50 animals, right? If it's like if you're having a difficult time understanding money, I've always said that there are different ways to make money. Cash is a way to make money, but you can make money via other things as well, right? I've talked about this concept all the time. You really don't want to be in a situation where you only see cash as money. Cash is not the only way to make money. And in reality, if you have a large equity position, if you have a large equity portfolio and you're in your net positive, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 a month, you can effectively already buy anything on the entire planet. You don't. This is something that I've talked about. Granted that you're not going to go and buy drugs, right? I mean, granted that you're not going to go and buy a bunch of alcohol. Granted that you're not going to go and spend a bunch of money gambling. You can effectively, if you and me, the thing is, I've talked about generating equity, right? Generating equity. Why is it a good idea to think about making equity that has a positive return instead of making cash? Why is that a good idea? Because effectively, here's another way to look at it. If I were going to make $1 million cash, it would probably take me 2 years. Like if I were legitimate, if you think about it, the tax implications that are involved, if I was going to make $1 million cash, it would probably take me about 3, 4, or 5 years to make $1 million cash. But if I were going to generate $5 to $10 million worth of equity, I could do that in 2 months. All right, that's another way to look at it. Because if I was going to if I was going to make cash, well, number one, there would be a large amount of taxes involved, and I would effectively just be pulling money out of my business so that I could have cash. But if I were going to generate money via equity, I would have my asset portfolio. I would go and I would find myself a piece of land in the middle of nowhere, Central Texas, right? I've talked about this. If I go into the middle of Central Texas and there's nothing there, that's perfect for me. if the soil crop classification is a 3 or better and the pH of the soil is between a 6 and an 8, right, and is not in some like major flood zone, then I can farm the land. And if I want to get a good idea of whether or not I can farm the land, I can just walk the property and see what the natural vegetation looks like. In reality, I really want a clay loam soil as well. I really like clay loam soil. All right, clay loam soil just grows grass very well in this area. It's got it's got a lot of good water retention properties. And so it's like if I walk onto a field in the middle of central Texas, there's nothing on it, the soil crop classification is a 3 or better, and the pH of the soil is between a 6 and an 8, then I can farm that land. More than likely, and it's a clay loam soil, more than likely I can farm the land. All right, and so I can go and I can take a look at it, and if I find a property like that, like the property that I purchased right now, right, middle of nowhere, there's nothing there. I mean, the population of the city is like less than 100 people, right? I mean, substantially more cattle than there are people, right? And there's nothing out there, right? I mean, that's perfect for me, right? That's perfect for me. I can run cattle on that. If I show up on a piece of land like that, I will generate millions of dollars. How do I do that? Because I'm taking a piece of land that has nothing on it, and I'm starting myself a cattle business. And when you take a look at a business, businesses are evaluated at a multiple of their earnings. And so if you have a business that is producing a positive return income, then that business is valuable, right? That's the equitable evaluation of the business. And so, you know, that's the big idea. It's like, you know, and when you're in a situation like you know, like even right now, it's like, let's say I go into the bank and, you know, I have a net, you know, I have a equity valuation of whatever, $2 million, right? And I'm net positive $7,000-8,000 a month. You can already buy anything, right? And I've already talked about in terms of talking to a banker, what are the best things that you should ask a banker for? When you know, well, I mean, obviously don't ask for anything. When you're presenting a deal, what is the best deal that you can offer? You're looking for an equitable asset. You're not trying to, I'm not talking about Pokemon cards, right? I've always said that when you're looking for an equitable asset, the thing that you're looking for is the largest market that you can find, right? And I talked about 2 very large markets. What are the 2 very large markets that I talked about? Business and real estate. All right, if you find a rental property or if you find a business, you offer that deal to the banker, and effectively the first thing that you're going to say more or less is essentially, this deal is already producing a positive cash flow. That's effectively what you're going to tell the banker. This deal that I am presenting you is equitable. It's not like I'm going to go and buy myself a boat. All right, it's not like I'm going to go and YOLO the money. I'm not going to go and YOLO the money on the stock market. I'm buying myself a hard asset. This thing already produces a positive return. And in reality, if you're going to talk about these things, if you're going to talk about assets, I've always said that if you know, one of the things that it's like, if you're going to go and you're going to communicate, you know, and you're going to communicate about things like this, money and business, you should be talking about your asset portfolio, right? I've talked about this. Don't offer your dream. Nobody cares about your dream. I mean, you know, you should be talking about your asset portfolio. This is a good asset. It is producing a positive return, and I am looking to finance it, right? And then, well, if the thing is already producing a positive return, and it's like, let's say that you're looking at a piece of rental property, and you offer it to the banker, and you say, hey, banker, you know, let's just, you know, whatever, right? You know, I'm looking to, you know, get a deal on this property. And, you know, it's cash flow positive as it is right now. And, you know, over the next couple of years, I have a realistic plan for how I am going to increase the cash flow of the deal. You know, it's already cash flow positive, and I have a realistic plan for how I am going to appreciate the asset and, you know, knowledgeably, right? I'm going to increase the rent per door. Right, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna run the business, and when I run the business, I'm gonna put my chops on the line, and I'm really gonna work at it, and I'm gonna make the business do better. Right, I mean, you know, you don't want to be buying failing assets. You don't want to be buying damaged assets. All right, buy good assets. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because the asset will pay for itself. And when you go and you make a deal, you need to make sure that the numbers work out for you, right? I mean, you don't want to go and take a deal that's just going to take you under forever. All right, I've talked about this. You really need to make sure that your deal is solid. All right, you need to make sure that your deal is solid. Okay, it needs to be making a positive return. You need to have checked everything 5,000 times, and in reality, a majority of you should not be doing anything like this at all. All right, you should not be running a business. Nobody cares about your business. Nobody cares about your dreams. Unless you have a realistic opportunity to make a very, very, very large sum of money, you're probably better off just getting yourself a good job. If you get yourself a good job and you invest a portion of your income, you already effectively make enough money to do whatever the heck you want. All right, and I've talked about this idea all the time too, and I was saying this a couple of days ago, but if you take the situation that you're in right now, if you take a look at the median American, 90% of people make less than $90,000 a year. All right, and the average family is effectively a mom and a dad and a kid, that all three of them work. That's effectively the average American family. If you take a look at most families, it's going to be a mom that's working, a dad that's working, and a kid that's working. It's going to be 3 earners per family, and the average family is going to make about $80,000 to $100,000 a year. All right, the 3 of them combined will make about $80,000 to $100,000 a year. But if you take this situation and you, the mom and the dad, find a way to make $2,000 a month more each, right? I've talked about this, and it's, if you find some way to make yourself an extra $2,000 a month, then you're effectively, the 2 of you combined are making an extra $48,000 a year. All right, and then at that point, if you don't go and you don't be an idiot with the money, you take the money and you invest it. I mean, you do that for 3 or 4 years, you effectively, even then, you already have enough money to do anything on the entire planet. All right, short of buying a yacht. I mean, if you don't need $10 million, you don't need $1 million. You realistically, what you need is a solid asset portfolio, and you just need to raise your income. That's it. All right, I mean, you don't need to even think about making $1 million. You don't need to think about making $10 million. I would highly suggest, and I've actually spoke about this idea, but it's not a good idea to sit there thinking about making cash. All right, it's not, a lot of you are most people, from what I have seen, are flip-flopped. You're sitting there with 0 assets, thinking about how am I going to make $1 million. And that is completely, I mean, you're not completely, I mean, borderline completely incorrect. From what I have seen, you should flip-flop that. All right, you should be looking for $1 million worth of assets and 0 cash before you look for 0. And I'm not saying you should find a asset that is worth $1 million producing 0 cash. I'm not saying that, but you're better off flip-flopped. Because if you have a million, okay, and actually I'll use a better example. Most people, from what I have seen, are looking to make $1 million cash while having 100,000 in equity. They're looking for $100,000 worth of equitable assets, right? Effectively, we're talking about like cars and homes and things like that. And then they're looking to make $1 million cash off of their worthless assets, which is not going to happen. All right, it's not going to happen. I can almost guarantee your chances of failing are effectively 100%. But if you flip-flop that and you look for an asset, $1 million worth of assets producing $100,000 cash, then you're good to go. All right, if you find $1 million worth of assets that produces $100,000 cash, you're better off in that situation than you are having $1 million worth of cash and $100,000 worth of equity. All right, because now it's like you have things like land, you have things like rental properties, you have a business, etc., etc. And that thing will always produce you money. And that's the big idea, is that, it's like if you go into the bank right now, if you have $1 million worth of equity and you make $100,000 cash, net positive, if you have $1 million worth of equity and $100,000 a year cash net positive, that's how much money you have left over after you've paid for everything. Then you can already effectively buy anything on the entire planet. Effectively, the bank will just ask you, what do you want? What would you like to buy? And then when they ask you that, more or less when they ask you that, the thing that you should respond with is, I am looking for more equitable assets. I'm looking to purchase this equitable asset that is producing a positive return. More or less, that should be your answer. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, you don't need $10 million to be rich. You effectively begin to feel the effects of wealth immediately. All right, like even me right now, and I've talked about, on this 10.5 acre field, I effectively generated myself about $1 million to $2 million worth of equity. And I even just on this business, I'm already net positive about $60,000 a year, $60,000 to $80,000 a year. It's already enough money for me to do anything that I want. Legitimately, I could already go and do anything. What did I do with the money? I went and I purchased an equitable asset that I am going to produce cash flow on. That's what I did, right? And this is exactly what I've been talking about. And I'm not just giving you a BS information. I'm legitimately telling you the information that I know, because at the end of the day, okay, when you take a look at me and you see somebody that it's me, I effectively, I don't. Okay, the thing about money is that I don't even make that much money. If you take a look at how much money I make, I don't even make that much money, but I still, okay, and most of y'all are gonna go, oh my God, but I make about probably, I generate about $5 to $10 million a year. In terms of net cash, in terms of just how much cash do I have left over every year? I mean, okay, let's think about it. If I have effectively, I have enough money, because if I think about it in terms of, I have zero expenses until May. I have zero expenses until May because of my non-payment agreement. My cattle are good to go. They're, I've stabilized my investment. I'm going to give them another round of vaccinations before I take them over to my new farm. I have 55 animals. I have 55 animals. And when I have 50 animals worth of money, and I'm taking a loan for 50 animals worth of money. And that puts me at 100 animals, and that's by about May. Okay, let's just say by the end of let's just say within 360, let's just say, because right now it's effectively the end of December, the middle of December, right? I mean, so let's just say in a year, I continue to run my business, and I take my 100 animals, I raise them, I make enough money, and when I raise them, I make enough money to buy 200 animals, right? I've appreciated the value of the asset. I've accumulated good assets, right? I've accumulated sound assets. And I make enough money to purchase 200 animals, all right? And so I pay the bank back their 50 animals, and let's just say I use 35 animals worth of money. So I started off with 50 animals, and I now have 115 animals. I'm net positive. I started off with 50 animals, and now I have 115 by the end of the year. And let's think about this even further, and I've already talked about this idea. Like, when I hit this point, I will actually go and look for a new piece of land. I will actually keep myself stabilized at about 100 cattle. I will take the money that comes off the top, and I will purchase things that I need for my business. All right, and so let's say I have 115 cattle worth of money. I take a loan to purchase 115 cattle more. That puts me at 230 cattle. All right, 230 cattle. I raise those animals, and when I raise those animals, and I, et cetera, I make enough money to purchase 460 animals. All right, and then I purchase 400. I have enough money to purchase 460 animals. I pay the bank back the 115 animals. And so that puts me at 335 or so animals, right? 335 animals. So I went from having 115 animals to 335 animals. And if you think of, and I've talked about this, I'm not interested in just making a bunch of cash, right? Realistically, I want to be growing my herd. Right, I want to be growing my herd. Why do I want to grow my herd? Because when I grow my herd, it's a tax-deductible asset that I can knowledgeably appreciate. All right, and if I need money, I can just liquidate a few animals. There are conditions where I will liquidate animals effectively, just because, like, if I hit target market weight, if I get my animals to 850, I will liquidate the animals under, because I cannot knowledgeably, if the grain market goes skyrocketing, whatever it may be, if I take a look at my situation and I say I do not have the capacity to appreciate these animals profitably anymore, I will liquidate them. And if I end up with a massive excess of cash, then I will go and buy myself equipment, right? I've talked about this. What am I going to do with that? I will just go and buy myself equipment. You know, so I have, you know, all of these scenarios, and, you know, it's like, you know, I'm going to liquidate my animals at 850. If, you know, I really, you know, I'm not going to be sitting there, you know, with a, you know, if I have a massive excess of cash, you know, because even, okay, you know, and, but think about it, if I have 115 animals worth of equity, if I have 115 animals, I mean, we're talking about borderline like $200,000 cash, okay? And so, and then if I'm net positive $200,000, then, you know, and that business is also valuable. That business is going to be worth a multiple of the excess of the money that I'm making. I mean, it's effectively, you know, this is also what I mean by when I run cattle, I effectively make so much money that I can do whatever the heck I want. And, you know, I was actually thinking about this too, but, you know, if I, you know, my new CPA does bankroll services. And, you know, I'm looking at a CPA that does bankroll services. And if I get a CPA that does bankroll services, I might actually just hire myself a veterinarian. And I was thinking about this. I was like, if I were going to go and hire somebody today, who would I hire? I mean, you know, what would I be looking for? I would be looking for a cattle veterinarian. All right. I mean, that would be somebody that's just very good for me to have. Right. I mean, you know, that would be somebody that I would look to hire. Right, I mean, they can take care of, you know, they can do the medication for the animals, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, if I was gonna hire somebody, you know, because I'm thinking about putting, you know, paying an accountant. I need an accountant, and then I'm also thinking about if, you know, if they do payroll services and I can hire people, who would I want to hire? I would want to hire a veterinarian. And so I was like, you know, I'll probably be looking for a cattle vet. And so, but that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.